again, this is the Filipino Baba. Today we're going to make solodke, specifically pampushki. So with any pampushki, you need some good dough. For today's recipe, we're going to use the rich, basic, sweet dough from this book by Savella, Stechishin. And the filling that we're going to use today is the one that's very popular in our household, mak. In other words, poppyseed. We had every intention of actually grinding our own mak. However, we're gonna take a shortcut today because we just cannot seem to find mak. So we're gonna use this canned poppy seed filling that we bought from Polonia Bakery here in Vancouver. It's a Polish bakery. So we're cheating a little bit, but we have to make do with what we have. So the ingredients for today's dough is 2 packets of yeast, 2 teaspoons of sugar, half a cup of lukewarm water, half a cup of butter, half a cup of sugar, half a cup of flour. This is gonna go with our starter, the yeast starter, 3/4 of a cup of scalded milk, 4 egg yolks, and 2 whole eggs, 1 teaspoon vanilla, and 1 teaspoon salt. The first step for our dough is to create our yeast starter. So we're going to dissolve our sugar, our 2 teaspoons of sugar with the half cup of water. So we're gonna dissolve that in there. And then we're going to add our 2 packets of yeast. Now that our yeast and sugar water are in there, we're going to also add half a cup of flour and also the 3/4 of a cup of scalded lukewarm milk, and we're going to beat this well. And then what we're going to do is cover it and put it somewhere warm to bubble up and rise. And what I'm going to do is actually put it inside my oven with the light on because that's the warmest spot in our house. Okay, I think this is well beaten. To get a tea towel, cover it up, and stick it here in our oven. So now what I'm doing here is creaming the butter and half a cup of sugar. Okay, so now that I've creamed the butter and sugar together, I'm now going to add the eggs. Now I'm going to combine the 4 egg yolks and the 2 whole eggs together along with the 1 teaspoon of salt. And then I'm going to beat this and try not to spill it. Just basically combine it. And then I'm going to add it here to our creamed butter and sugar. The egg, I'm just going to beat this well. I should really go and use my mixer, but what's a little labor? I'll call this my exercise for the day. Now that I've beaten this thoroughly, I'm going to add in our vanilla from Playa del Carmen and our lemon zest. It's a zest of an entire lemon. Now I'm going to add our sponge or the yeast concoction into the egg and butter and sugar mixture. And we're gonna just stir that to combine them. Now that I've combined the sponge to the egg mixture, it's time to add the main ingredient of any dough, flour. I may have omitted that in the beginning when I was going through the ingredient list, but it's about 4.5 to 5 cups of flour. Sifted flour. So now what I'm going to do is just add these cup by cup, so I can kind of determine the consistency of the dough. We're supposed to end up with a soft dough. I think this dough should be okay now because I'm gonna knead it, and the half cup of flour, I'll use it on my floured surface here. It called to knead it inside the bowl, but I find that that's actually really hard for me because I'm quite petite and this bowl is quite deep. So I'm going to do it here on our clean kitchen counter. Again, I'm adding a lot of flour. And I'm gonna knead this, it said for 10 minutes. Alexa, turn timer for 10 minutes.
10 minutes, starting now. By the way, I can notify you on all your devices if you don't hear your timing correctly. Would you like me to do that?
Yes?
Okay, I'll notify you on all your devices.
Thank you, Alexa. Now that I've kneaded this for 10 minutes, it was very long. It's all nice and smooth and soft. I'm going to put it back in the bowl, cover it, and then put it in the oven again and let it rise until it's double. Punch it down, let it rise again, and then we're ready to make pampushki. Now the dough is ready, so I'm going to punch it down. Doubled in size, so I'm gonna punch it down. Ooh. Then knead it a couple times again, and then put it back in the oven to rise a second time. And then we'll be ready to fill the pampushki. There we go. Knead it into a little ball. Going to cover it with saran wrap. And it's going back in here again to rise up. So that's going to be about another hour. The dough has now risen twice, so I'm going to flip this over. I'm actually going to flour this surface a little bit. And then I'm going to cut this in half because I have plans for the other half of this dough. I'm only going to use half for pampushki because I'm going to make something else in a bit. So I'll put this one back in here and just cover it. And then now we're gonna go to the part that I really like to do, rolling dough. Now I'm going to use this glass to cut circles, and then I'm going to fill that with the muck that I introduced earlier. I don't have a cookie cutter, so I'm just going to use this. Ooh. Okay, so I took one of the rounds, and now I'm going to fill it. I'm not really too sure how. I practiced on quite a few, but my technique is still not there on how to close this. So if there's an easier way of doing this, please comment below and give me some tips. Thank you. Дякую. This past summer, I actually made some bomboloni's, Italian donuts, out of my sourdough starter. I was into the sourdough train during the start of the quarantine, and they turned out really well. But the only difference is that those donuts, I fried them, then stuffed them with lemon curd cream, or lemon cream, basically. So I'm not really sure how this one will turn out. I've finished rolling and filling the dough. So as you can see, there are round balls waiting to rise and double in bulk. But I can already tell which ones are going to fail. These, and maybe these right here where you see the muck kind of showing through. I may have rolled that dough a little too thin. I have really good hope for this one. And this one might have some interesting shape after, because so wish me luck. Now I'm going to fry some of the pampushki. I heated the oil to about 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So now I'm just gonna put a couple in at a time. Ooh, they poofed up. So I don't want to overcrowd the pan because then that would bring down the oil temperature. Okay. I'm going to take this out now, and I'm just going to put it here to drain, so I don't want a lot of oil. Now I'm finished deep frying all the delicious dough morsels. So this is the finished product. Not too bad. This is for Christmas Eve, so I'm going to freeze these ones in time for Christmas Eve. These ones I've had to kind of put sugar on it to make sure that we don't confuse it. These are just little dough balls. There's no filling in them. And these are the ones that I like to call my rejects because they're a little bit too dark. So we're going to eat these tonight. And so I'm just gonna put some icing sugar on them. Partially to hide the dark color from deep frying. See? No one would know. This dish, or this solodke, is actually the one that I was really afraid of trying to make because I'm afraid of hot oil. And I've only deep fried this is actually the 5th time I've deep fried anything in my life. Once I deep fried some chicken wings, the other 3 times were this past summer for my bomboloni Italian donuts. And then now this. I have to say, it was pretty, well, I wouldn't call it easy, but it wasn't so bad. And, I mean, come on, deep fried dough, who doesn't like that? One thing I did notice and I learned is that I should really listen to Savella because she said roll the dough 1/4 inch thick. I rolled it a little too thin the first time around and the dough was a little bit too transparent. So I was scared that the mock would actually pop when it was proofing, but luckily none of them did. So yay me! So on to the next dish, which is another poppy seed dish. Actually, it's pretty much similar to this. It's just a different configuration. Can you guess what it is?